Hello, my name is Rickard, and in this short tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create an animated GIF in Photoshop. So I don't use the animation features or the timeline features much in Photoshop just because Adobe has far better tools for that, including Adobe After Effects or Premiere. However, there are times when you're in Photoshop and you want a simple animated GIF, and it's much easier to just accomplish that in Photoshop than opening another program. So let's dive into Photoshop and check out some of the timeline features in Photoshop. All right, so I'm going to go to File, Open. Here we have two files, a before and after. And let's go ahead and open both of them. So I'm going to select both with Shift and then just click on the Open. And that's going to open them both. Now I want them both in one document here. So basically I want to take this and put it in this document. Now there's multiple ways I can do that. I can kind of drag this off here and just drag this like this across. As you can see, that doesn't line them up. But if I go back to my other window, a little trick here is if both documents are the same size, if you drag it across like this and hold Shift while you do it, it will land in the right place. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it, and this is just so that you have it in case you need it in the future, you can also go here and let's say this was just one layer in this document, and I just wanted to transfer this layer into this document. What I can do is right mouse click and go to, where is it here? Duplicate layer. And then here, when I duplicate the layer, I can change the destination to my other document. And then I can put this maybe as after, and then hit OK. And then in here, you'll see it's added that layer. It's also sending it up for me. So those are just various ways that you can combine documents in Photoshop. For doing an animation, you're going to need at least 2 layers. So let's go ahead. We can close this now. I'm not going to save. So now we have both of our layers here, our before and our after. And I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this. I'm going to change the name to before. And to do animation in Photoshop, we need to open the timeline, which is up here in Window and Timeline. Now, instead of opening the timeline here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change my workspace to Motion, and that'll open my timeline down here, kind of set the workspace to what you're going to need when you do animation. So there you go. We now have our animation timeline, and there's 2 types of animations in Photoshop. And you'll notice here this little drop down, there's a timeline and there's a frame animation. And I'm going to show you the difference between both of these. So for a timeline, what you're going to do is click on this. It'll create a timeline. It'll default it at 5 seconds with 30 frames per second down here. So what that means is there's going to be 5 seconds times 30 frames, so that there's going to be 150 frames across this animation. So now down here, you'll see these little 3 frames here. If I click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to convert my timeline to a frame animation. And a frame animation, well, right now we just have 1 frame, but let's say I wanted to add another frame, right? So I can click on this here, and now I have a second frame. If I go on this, turn on this layer, you'll notice this frame is now a different frame, right? And in terms of an animation, these are both going for 5 seconds each. You can change that down here. So let's put this on 0.2 seconds, and let's put this one on 0.2 seconds. So now if I push this little play button here, you can see I have a basic before and after animation. Now this before and after animation, obviously it flickers too fast. I want to have something a little more smooth, maybe have a wipe, something a little more interesting. So let's go ahead and hit the stop button there. I want to switch this back to a timeline animation. So let's click back on this. And you can see now here we have our timeline. Because we had set these to 0.2 seconds, it's shaved these down to 15 frames. You can see that here. In order to make our timeline longer, what we're going to do is basically this represents the timeline. So I could make it shorter here, but I can't make it longer because I have no content. So what I have to do is first take one of these, go to the very edge of the frame here, and just drag this out to however long I want the animation to be. In this case, I actually want the animation to take place over 2 seconds. So let's go ahead and make this 2, and you can see my little duration. It's showing me that as I move this. So I'm going to just move this until it's at the 2-second mark right there. You can see that's also changed the length of my timeline. I'm going to also make this, and I need one more layer here. So I'm going to put this, and we're going to call this matte. And basically, I'm just going to use this layer as my mask. So I'm going to go ahead and fill my layer with some black. And black is my foreground color, so that's fine. If it wasn't, I could always go down here and set it as black. And that's my matte. And what I want to do here, so right now the opacity of my after layer is 0. That's because when we were doing a frame animation at the beginning of our frame, I had this turned off. So let's put this back on 100. And essentially what I want to do is I want to clip the after to our matte so that I can move my matte downwards without my image moving downwards. So basically I'm going to hold down Option and clip these two. And now what I have is this bottom layer is acting as a mask for this layer. So if I move this, you can see it's revealing my before image underneath. And this gives me far more options for my animation. If we go over here in our timeline, and basically a timeline is a 2-dimensional representation of time going forward. So as time progresses, our timeline is going to move to the right, and we can set keyframes, which is a term in animation for a point that sets position, rotation, or some other element that you're animating in one state, and then another keyframe sets that state at a different point in time. So in this case, I want our animation to go for 2 seconds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, put it down here, and you'll notice when I made a new layer, it defaulted the length of that layer to 5 seconds. Unfortunately, there's no way of fixing this in Photoshop, which is why I don't really use Photoshop for animation that often. I mainly do it just for small things like this, where opening up Premiere or opening up After Effects just doesn't make sense for something that's gonna be relatively quick and is already in Photoshop, meaning my before and after images are already in Photoshop. That's where I made them. Okay, so having said all that, we do have some more options with our matte. So if I click on this little thing here, you can see what options or what things I have to animate. So with position, I can click on this. So now that has established this as the position. And then at the 2-second mark, I want the position of this to go all the way down to there. So now if I go to the beginning of my animation and click on the play button here, you can see that my animation does a wipe. Now it's doing from our after to our before. We want it to do the opposite. So I could try to change it here, right? So in theory, I would just do this, do this, do this. And now let's see what happens with our animation. It's going from before to after. So that actually worked. Great. So there you go. Now we have our animation. And the reason this worked, by the way, is because the only thing we've animated is our matte, right? So the only thing that actually changed, what we changed was the location of our before and after, but that didn't change the animation that was on the matte here. So there you go. That's our before and after. And if we hit play, you can see what that does. It just does a simple wipe. All right, so now we want to save this as a video. So to do that, we're going to go, where is it? Okay, so we can go here and go down to render video. We can also go to File, Export, and Render Video. Now, when we do the render video, you're going to see a dialog pop up. Here it's showing us the progress of our video export. And this is probably taking a while because it's a 2K file. Generally, when you're doing animations, you want the file size to be smaller. Just, you know, a good example here is for 2 seconds, you're talking about 600 frames. Oh no, sorry, 2 seconds, that would be 60 frames. So that's still a lot of frames compared to your single image. And the higher resolution that is, the bigger your file size is going to be. Okay, I'm going to fast forward through this. Okay, so after a little bit of research, apparently the render video has some bugs. I'll link to the support forum posts on that. But fortunately for our purposes, we do not need to render the video because what I want to do is I want to export this as an animated GIF. So let's go to File, and we're going to go to my favorite, which hopefully doesn't remain legacy, but it's the Save for Web Legacy. I'm going to go into that, and here I'm going to change my preset to, actually before I change the preset, I want to change the size. When you go to PNG or GIF at this kind of file size, Photoshop is just going to take really long. So let's change this to 600 first. And then let's go and change this to GIF 128 dithered. And now it's converting this to a GIF. And with a GIF, we are going to have some animation options. Okay, here we go. So here you can have, there's a few options. I can do this to loop forever or just go once. I want this to loop forever. If I play here, you can get a little preview of what's going to happen. And there you go. And it'll just keep looping back and forth like this. So that's what I want. Then I can hit here, save. And let's put this in here. We'll call it Gates of Eternity Animation. So there you have it. That's how you create a simple animated GIF in Photoshop showing a before and an after. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to my channel, leave a like, share this video, leave a comment. I do try to read them all. And here's some other tutorials to check out. I'll see you next time.